Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today in War Thunder it is time to have a look at the River class. Now the River class is a machine which is coming to War Thunder for Operation Heat. It is the first event vehicle that is available to the naval side of things, and I know a lot of people are interested in the H.E.A.T, but there's no reason to overlook the River class. The River class has quite a lot of interesting things to it, and we're going to go through it in this video. So what was interesting when Gaijin dropped the River class devlog, they actually named a specific one, the K-246, which is of course the HMS Spey. Now the HMS Spey follows a long tradition in World War II of the river class frigates doing a ton of damage to well, basically U-boats, which is what they were designed to do. These were designed to escort merchant ships, and by doing that also be prepared to take on vessels which were designed to annihilate those merchant ships, mainly U-boats. So that's why these machines have so many depth charges. That's why they have guns which seem to be specifically designed to combat what they are fighting. River classes overall, there was around about 150 made, and there was only 9 which were sunk when it came to being lost in action. Some were torpedoed by U-boats, and others unfortunately were hit by mines. The fact was, the River class, even though in game just looks like a massive chunky machine, was incredibly successful at its job in World War II, alongside stuff like the Flower class and even the Isle class. It was cheap, it was efficient, it was effective, and it kept the merchants alive, and it kept the supplies flowing, and that's all it needed to do. This wasn't supposed to be a flashy battleship or a destroyer. It was supposed to do its job, and it was able to do it, which is why for me it is incredibly important that we have it shown in game. The fact that, you know, it is a machine that has its place in history, and therefore it deserves to be in War Thunder for that fact. If we talk about the main armament on this thing, the first thing that should draw your attention is it has two 102mm on it. The first one on the front and the second one on the back of it. On top of this as well, it has two 40mm which sit just below the middle or the center of the boat itself, and then around the bridge there are two 20mm. So that is your complement of armament if you disclude the ridiculous amount of depth charges on the back, and also the Hedgehog launcher on the front of the machine. So overall what you have is a lot of secondary armaments which unfortunately haven't really been shown to do too much in War Thunder in the form of the depth charges and also the bomb mortars, but we do know that 40mm are incredibly strong when it comes to War Thunder, and hopefully that continues with the River class going forward. They are in a little bit of an awkward position, meaning that getting shots from both of them on a target in the sea is not going to be the easiest thing to do. At the same time, they're in great position to kill, you know, planes coming in which are going to try and bomb you. Same with the 20mm, you know, so at least that's what I'm personally going to use them mainly for. And the reason for this is because, well, the River class is incredibly slow. If you've ever played the Flower class or the Isle class, what you'll realize is these are machines which are not quick. They're not designed exactly for speed, because, well, they were supposed to hunt stuff like submarines, and in World War II the submarine was not exactly a fast machine either. So the speed aspect of it in War Thunder is going to leave a lot of people wanting more, and the issue with this is in naval especially, one of the large things that's happening in there is the dominance, let's call it, of aircraft. With their bombs, which are able to hull break specific machines, when it comes to torpedoes, where it one-shots the majority of machines, the aircraft can be a very oppressive force when it comes to naval. And when I've used my Flower class, which is the best, you know, the best way of describing the River class and how it's going to play in game at this moment, you get a really nice 5 to 7 minutes when it comes to the battle itself. and then what happens is a plane comes in and bombs you, because you are a massive target normally at your BR. And what this means is they just look at you and they dive on you and they bomb you and you die. And if you're not doing that, then you're either getting torpedoed by something else. The way I normally use the Flower class is try to sit it next to an island and use the main guns to try and knock out enemies. And I'm sure the River class I'll be doing exactly the same thing, because this thing is lumbersome, because this thing is big. It's slightly faster than the Flower class, but that's very much a slight factor. On top of this as well, when we look at some of its other factors, right now in the files it is labeled as a vehicle which has a BR of 3.3. Now, I believe the Flower class has a BR of either 2.0 or 2.3. I believe the Owl class is 2.0 and the Flower class is 2.3. So this has on top of it, it's slightly faster, it has the same armor, it's actually slightly bigger than the Flower class as well, it has 2 extra bowfers, and it has only 2 20mm and an extra 102. So it's going up a whole 10 BR brackets because it has an extra 102, but mainly because of those 2 40mm. So overall, if this thing comes into the game at 3.3, remember, 3.3 is a BR where the destroyers start turning up, and they start turning up in quite a large way. This is nowhere near the level of a destroyer. Maybe a Clemson, which is of course the first destroyer that the British get, but if you look at machines that this would have to fight at 3.3, it makes absolutely no sense. So when I talked about it in the dev blogs, I thought this would be quite a fun machine around 2.7, maybe even 2.3, but I would say around 2.7, because of the fact that you'd be beefy, you know, you'd be able to take a lot of hits, you'd be able to dish out some damage. It would be hard to aim the 102s, but if you could hit, you could do well. But at 3.3, all that's going to happen is you're going to spawn in, you're going to either stay near the islands of specific maps and do what you would do at 2.7, or you're going to get to open water and there's going to be a destroyer that starts laughing at you and then pummels you with either 100s or 127s or whatever they have on board, and you're going to have to sit there with your piddly 102s and just get massacred, because, well, guess what, this thing was not designed to fight destroyers. That's also not looking at some of the other boats around 3.3 which do incredibly well. The LCS, the PGO2, the Type 141, all of these machines are great at that little BR because of their highly fast automatic guns, which are easy to get on target and a little bit of speed behind them. You know what the River class lacks in a main gun capacity? Fast guns, and also the fact that it is able to get around the map quickly. This is this very slow machine which has access to 2 40mm, and that is your main automatic, you know, payload, let's call it. And the secondaries, this bomb mortar idea of the Hedgehog, and also the depth charges, I think is massively oversold. When the CH2 and the CH4 came out, the Japanese large boats with the 40mm on the front, the way that they were sold to the community was that they had so many depth charges that they would be so useful in the game that it would be wonderful. Now, the reason why the CH2 and the CH4 are good is because one of them has a 40 on the front of it and the other one has 2 40s on the front of it. It has nothing to do with its depth charges. So, in my opinion, when it comes to depth charges, they are, at least at this moment in time, a non-factor when it comes to my decision making on how a vehicle is performing. They just don't matter in my head because I see them as completely useless, even if they have launchers which throw the depth charges a little bit farther. Because if a machine at this level, at that BR of the River class, let's say 3.3, that it is right now, I'm pretty sure it'll get lowered, but let's just say, you know, that's the BR. If a machine is that close to you anyway, you're dead. Because if it's a PT boat, you've been torpedoed. And if it's another boat, such as the PGO2 or the LCS, you have just been annihilated by its guns. So, yeah, it's a very odd scenario that depth charges are seen as this wonderful thing. At the same time, though, the one thing I do like about the 102s on the River class, and also which are on the Flower class, is it's a great gun to be able just to hit enemies and do decent damage to them while, you know, knocking out key components. It means that you can also outrange a lot of enemies, something that could definitely be overlooked. And this works in the Flower class because it's a 2-3. And if this thing gets loaded in BR, it would work, but at 3-3, maybe not, because, you know, destroyers are around the place. But the main thing is, the 102s mean that against stuff like PT boats and battle boats, a lot of them which have the high fire rates, high octane guns, you may struggle against, apart from the fact that you can outrange them. So at the start of a battle, when you dial them in, you can do damage before they get close to you, and then when they get close to you, you can let the 40 bang and make sure to try and do some damage that way. Overall, the River class has its flaws, mainly its size and the fact that planes exist, but I enjoyed some of my time in the R class and Flower class if planes, once again, didn't exist. So you'll get a good 5-7 minutes out of this thing, as long as its BR gets dropped. If it stays at 3-3, unfortunately, I believe this thing will be dead on arrival. I hope you all have I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, John Ryman, Martinez, Moxie, Alobralo, Super Cacti, Grisvolk, E-Love Goat, and Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.